Thank you everyone for showing up tonight. It's truly been an honor to be able to find a path that began with mindfulness. 20 years ago this month, I was at my first mindfulness retreat, and it opened a door to me, and that door was to the inside, an inside journey. We're going to start with a meditation tonight, and there's lots of language that people don't like, and I try to stay away from it. And I talk about a drop. We drop into our interior world. So I'm going to ring the bells, and we're going to go through a few minutes of a guided meditation. Before we do that though, this can sound and look so heavy. It's not. The purpose of all of this is to find what I've condensed in my life to my four guiding principles: peace, beauty, joy, and love. BBJNL. And because I found that those are really what everybody wants. BBJNL. And mindfulness takes us. It opens the door. And I'm going to hinge everything I say this evening around the role of mindfulness through this whole journey. I'm not a chatbot, and this is not an AI voice. This is me. Kermit the Frog's got nothing on me. Just following the disappearance of the bells and allowing your attention, with your permission, to turn inwards. We spend enough time paying attention to the outer life, but it's only one half of the world we inhabit. The other half is the inner life, the inner landscape. And mindfulness, the ability to pay attention in each moment and to see what this territory looks like. To explore the inner world of our humanity. And of course, we always need a map. And the simplest map seems to be made up of three areas. The first is the mind. And the mind, as we know, is always busy. Thinking and emotions, thoughts and feelings, past and future, judgments, stories, and those are useful because they help us navigate the world out there. And when infused with the right ingredients, they can also help us navigate our inner territory. But we're not going to spend much time on the mind tonight. The second area of the inner world is art, the heart of the matter, the core. And the heart usually exists simultaneously in two aspects. The first aspect is the yucky stuff, hurt, bleeding heart, broken heart, wounded, neglected, tired. And at the same time, art is the source of our connection with ourselves and with others. It's closely associated with love. And so the heart tends to simultaneously be wounded and be healing. So we had mind with thoughts and feelings, emotions. And when the world settles in our heart, we experience things at a different level. We know things differently when it's in the heart. The heart speaks a different language. It has a different vocabulary. It's quieter and softer. It whispers. The third area of our inner world is called soul. And I use soul in the way that the psychiatrist Carl Jung used it. He spoke about our authentic self, the deepest part of our personality, the deepest part of our collective humanity. You can use soul in a religious sense if you wish. And the three great monotheistic religions certainly do. It serves the same purpose. But soul is at another level altogether. It's a source. It's endless. And it's connected deeply. At the deepest level. Carl Jung called it the collective unconscious. It goes by many other names, which I won't define, but I will offer. Buddha nature, the cosmic Christ, the Shekhinah if you're Jewish, the feminine mothering aspects of God, Gaia, the ground of being, essence, and the language of the soul is entirely different again. It's filled with imagination and creativity. It's symbols, stories, pathology. And as our deepest source, we can see that mindfulness, the capacity to pay attention on purpose each moment, without rushing to judge things or arrive at conclusions, is the doorway to much of this inner world. So mindfulness is just one aspect of practice, and it takes us into a realm of infinite possibilities and ways of being, rather than the usual chattering, habitual mind. Mindfulness is both a process. There's how to do mindfulness, how to center ourselves, to find some peace, or rest, or quiet. But there's also mindfulness as content. What are we mindful of? So there's lots of practice of mindfulness being related to awareness and attention, being conscious of, becoming aware of. Tonight's talk is more focused on the content of what we can become mindful of. And I'm not unique in suffering. I'm not unique in having had cancer. I'm not unique in facing the questions of mortality or pain in the world, ongoing turmoil. And if the last 6 years have shown us anything, it's how little we can find ground in an ever-changing outer landscape. So perhaps there's even more value in going inwards now. And that's the journey I want to share with you. Not as a final offering, but as just one example of how Allan has tried to apply some of the wisdom that mindfulness and other teachings has given me and helped me through a dark patch. And for each of you, the invitation is to be listening. Not only for those moments where I was less mindful and became more mindful, and not so much listening to the details of my story, but how you might apply those principles and begin to bring more peace, beauty, joy, and love to your mind, your heart, and your soul. was more than a year ago that I had some hoarseness in my voice, and I was always clearing my throat. I went to see the ENT surgeon. He had a look, he said, there's a lump in your airway. Let's biopsy it. That was in March. It came back as an aggressive kind of cancer. It was relatively isolated in a cartilage in my throat. There wasn't any evidence of spread. And my wife, Michelle, was in the car with me when we spoke to him. And I said, what do you suggest? He said, the best thing is not to be conservative, because this does grow aggressively locally. So I said, what does that mean? He said, we'll take out your larynx, which is a fascinating thing for someone who had a bad stutter as a kid and who made a life and a career out of talking. Michelle and I looked at each other and we said, laryngectomy it is. In preparation for what was coming, and I had no idea how tough the journey would be. I gave the talk on June the 5th, exactly 7 months ago. Embracing darkness as a preparation for what was coming. Because mindfulness says you've got to lean into things. You can't avoid them. You can't deny them. You can't pretend they're not there. Lean into it. So my initial response was, never mind WTM. It was more like WTF. The surgeon told me it would be tough. They told me the recovery would be a year. But Allan's got his old stories. I can do this. I've been through tough stuff. I've got this. I've got mindfulness 19 years under my belt. Yeah, right. July 15th. A day that shall go down in infamy. I have 7.5 hours of surgery. I wake up. I don't know where I am really. I can't talk for the next 6 weeks. I can't drink. I've got a nasogastric tube. And day 4 was the worst day of my life. I've had my parents die. I've had a sibling die. Friends, other family members. Nothing prepared me for this. Nothing. Because I was completely out of control. And all 4 domains were hijacked by the physicality of this. I was tired. I was in pain. My neck was swollen 4 times the size. It got infected. I had 3 drains in my neck. I was being poked for needles and blood work twice a day. I was at the front of the Foothills Hospital in a room facing east. And air conditioning doesn't seem to work there very well. There was no relief. And on that 4th day, I was was the darkest hours of my life. And I called Michelle at 5 in the morning. And I said, "Joe, I don't know if I can carry on." There was no relief, emotionally or spiritually. My brain was finished. I couldn't think. I had nothing left. And there was just total surrender. I'd read about and heard and listened to all kinds of people. The idea of radical acceptance. They talk about it in Alcoholics Anonymous, step 1. Complete surrender, I'm done, I'm powerless. And acceptance is not resisting. Because as long as I'm resisting, and this is where mindfulness comes in, as long as I'm resisting, I'm fighting. And the only person being fought is myself. And as far as I know, as I look back, I've never won a battle with myself. I always seem to come out on the short end. So that separation, that battle, here's a visual. I'm apart from myself. But when I surrender back to myself. And now I'm in a relationship with myself again. And some of you have heard me ask this question before. My favorite question. What's called for? How many of you know my favorite question, by the way? What's called for? A few of you. Good. It's my favorite question. Not what do I do? What do I do might come later. That's a mind question. But what's called for is peace, is the first step. A ceasefire with myself and the medical system and cancer. And the answers to what's called for comes from heart and soul. It doesn't come from the mind. That's why mindfulness people love it, because the practice of dropping in, the body knows how to calm down. When we drop in beneath the mind, within 2 minutes, when we give ourselves permission with intention, the body and the heart calms down. And when the body calms down, the mind says, "Oh, I can feel a bit more safe. I'm going to get through this." So the first step was getting out of my own way. Because whatever stories I had, nothing prepared me for this. We did all the right things. We optimized medication, got on antibiotics, saw the physiotherapist, learned how to clean my airway, put a big fan in my room. But my mind was finished. It took me a month before I could read anything. After 5 minutes of looking at emails, I was done. I couldn't even watch a TV show. I had nothing mentally to give. Because there's certain things, when all the thinking in the world is shown to be useless, it preparation, my mindful preparation was leading up to this. It's actually sort of ironic that my first mindfulness retreat happened just a few months before my father got cancer and died. His death was my first mindful practice of significance. The timing was perfect. The inability to talk. I thought having a stutter as a kid was bad. The toughest moments Michelle and I have ever had were due to the feebleness of the written word. Because every word is a metaphor, and every word can be misconstrued, and we miss the nuance. Michelle thought I wanted this, but I wanted that. Michelle hadn't been through this either. So we struggled in our relationship. We were challenged enormously. My very wise therapist had a joint session with us. She labeled it about 6 weeks out. She said, "You've just been traumatized," and thought of it as trauma. I didn't have big trauma as a kid. I had a lot of tailwinds. But this was trauma, stripped bare. It took a month till we got the pathology back. And as far as I know, I didn't realize how much it was weighing on me. Because am I going to die? Our granddaughter was only a year at the time. My son is here with us tonight. Michelle said to me, "You can't go, Allan. You just can't go. Because Ariella needs you." And as Michelle said that, what echoed inside my soul was that I need her. I've always been mindfully aware that I've got a spark in me. I once had a patient who said to me, "Why should I want to live?" And I said, "I don't have an answer for you." He said, "What's your answer, Allan?" I said, "Because I don't know what happens after I die. But in the meantime, I've got enough to live. I've got enough joy and peace, and love and creativity. And it's not my time yet." And when I was at that low point on day 4, I became mindfully aware that something had been robbed of me because I was in so much physical discomfort. I couldn't see what had always kept me alive. That essence, the soul, the deepest part of my being. Just the fact of getting out of bed in the morning. And it was about day 5 or 6, once I turned the corner, that I realized how pure and beautiful my breath was. My hoarseness had gone. I can hear every breath now. And probably I said this to my surgeon a few weeks ago in a follow-up. I said to her, I've got a great body trick. I'm one of the very few people who can publicly intubate himself without an anesthetic and not pass out. I've always had a belief to affirm life. Because when rough things happen, and this came to me during COVID, the early year of COVID, when tough times come for us, we've only got 4 choices. That's it. We can fight it and hope that things will go back to the way they are, or the way they were. Good luck with that one. We can curl up in a corner in despair and give up. Or what's happened politically, circle the wagons and justify our position and see everybody else as the enemy. On whatever the fad of the day is, politically or culturally, economically or whatever. That's number 2. Third, there are people, and in my career I've met them, professionally and personally. There are people who suicide. They check out. They've had enough. I'm not going to say anything about that, because who am I to judge? But what came to me some years back, given how much pain and suffering and war and terrible things we do to each other on this planet, it's actually amazing that more people don't kill themselves. So the question becomes, what keeps us alive? And it comes down to heart and soul. That's all it can be. You can call it the life force or whatever. There was a psychologist in the 60s who spoke about death, suicide. It's not a mental health problem. It's an existential problem. And I've known a few people who were out of touch with their soul. They didn't allow their soul to be free and to live and to bring the soul's energies up to the heart and the mind. And when you lose touch with your soul, there's nothing worth living for. So the importance of heart and soul, to be mindful of these deep, deep assets, that the soul is a deep source, no matter how you conceptualize it. I'm even using the word wrong. Just caught myself there. It's not the soul. I just use soul, because each person's going to work with that in a different way. Our soul keeps us alive. We need to find ourselves again and again. When people ask me, where do I get my sense of humor from? people have said, you're such a positive guy, Allan. I say, you know what? The research suggests that sort of happiness is about 40%. Some people are born like Tigger, and some people are born like Eeyore. But it's only 40%. I've always been a puppy. I have a deep curiosity. I like having fun. I like to play. I like to create. So I'm in the middle of writing a book. Surprise, surprise. Mind, heart, and soul, and peace, beauty, joy, and love are going to be in there. Gee, big surprises. Spoiler alert. In PBJNL, mindfulness is the door into that calmness with the body. A sense of peace, groundedness, centeredness. The body relaxes, the mind relaxes. So peace comes first. We slow down enough to set the intention, to notice the fuller aspects of life, the inner connections, the outer relationships. And after peace comes beauty. I noticed how beautiful my breath was. Without knocking the adventurers, there were a few nights I couldn't sleep in the hospital. Surprise, surprise. I found myself watching a documentary of some of those people who climb Everest, knowing that there's a significant chance more people die on the way down than on the way up. And I said to myself, I'm not knocking them. It's their life, their choice. I would never do that. My life is too precious. I wouldn't risk my life. My life is too precious. It was a weird thing to be watching at 4 a.m. in the Foothills Hospital, 2 weeks after surgery. I watched some of my favorite junk TV on YouTube. I love Judge Judy. For her wisdom, for her smarts, to see what games people play, to watch the sweep of humanity. Sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's tragic. Of course, I owe a great deal of thanks to Michelle, my wife. We've been together 49 years this month. To my son and daughter, son-in-law, daughter-in-law, my granddaughter. And there's only about 10 or 15 people here tonight whom I don't know. And to all of you, I say thank you. And to all the other people who came tonight, my friends, my colleagues, work colleagues, people I still see regularly, I connect with. My tribe, I thank you. Of course, I've learned the most in my career from my patients. They've taught me to be humble. They've taught me to be comfortable not knowing, not being sure, not pretending to have the answers, but being able to show up authentically. In a way that makes sense. To be fully present. To hold space the fullness of our own lives and the lives of others and those who love us and those we love. I read a friend's blog the other day, and I'm stealing a line from him. Actually, I'll do the free advert. His name's David Irvine. He's talking in 2 weeks' time. He's a published author of 2 books on authenticity. David's blog the other day. He had a quote about authenticity being, "This is what I stand for." And this is what I long for. This is what I stand for. And this is what I long for. And as John Kabat-Zinn, the famous mindfulness teacher, said, as long as you're alive, there's more right with you than wrong with you, no matter what's wrong with you. He says we don't have a lot of success with the dead in teaching the mindfulness. And when we give ourselves permission, I'm wrapping up now. When we give ourselves this kind of permission to be mindful about the fullness of our life, we see that we're not separate from any of it. Our mind or life, our main life, are very intimate. Attention and awareness are twins. That any doorway is the right doorway. That peace leads to beauty. Beauty becomes revealed in the peace. And joy then becomes something that animates us. We feel joy. And then love is the commitment to carry on all of that. And for each person it's going to be different. For some people their curriculum is not going to be BBJNL. For some people it's going to be forgiveness. That's a great doorway too. Or compassion. Or patience. Or creativity. Or curiosity. And it's all wrapped up with love. So peace exposes and reveals. Beauty emerges. Joy animates. And love carries on the commitment. And they start to feed on each other. And they reinforce. And the map and the territory and the journey all become one. At some point you can't separate them out. The map, the territory, and the journey are all one. Two quotes I'll end with. What's the time? None of them watch.
7:52.
I'm doing great. My favorite quote of all time is from Carl Jung. He's a guy. As far as we can discern, the sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being. As far as we can discern, the sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being. T.S. Eliot in the Four Quartets. We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive at the place we started and see it for the first time. We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive at the place we started and see it for the first time. So the relationship of darkness and light. Another line from T.S. Eliot, a couple of paragraphs down from that quote. The last line, and the fire and the rose are one. The fire and the rose are one. I recommend the Four Quartets at a very, very slow, gentle place in a hammock on a summer afternoon in the shade. I'll give some summary, share a couple of 3 take-home messages at the end of question time.
Question time. Thank you, Alan. Are you up to answering some questions?
I'm more animated than I've been for a long time.
So in order to moderate the discussion and to catch the questions for the recording, I'll try and paraphrase what your question is, so help me out. Make it succinct, broad to apply to the audience as a whole, and then Alan can answer it. Who would like to ask the first question?
I'm also welcome to people. What came up for you? What part of your church humanity showed up tonight?
Deb, did you have a question?
Well, I'm wondering about your darkest night, Alan, and how you got through that.
Deb is wondering about Alan's darkest night and how we got through that.
It was the morning of day 4. It's been said that meditation practice, the sole purpose of meditation practice, is to prepare for the day you're going to die, so you can meet it in the best possible way. I'd read some books about 2 years ago. I read the book called The Dark Night of the Soul. Very powerful book. That morning, when Michelle got to the hospital, I said to her, I don't know if I can carry on. And I had a very unique experience. My eyes were closed, and I felt a presence. It wasn't a form or a figure, but there was a stark presence to my left and in front of me, standing on the wall in the hospital room. And I'm talking metaphorically here. However this lands for you, take it or leave it. It doesn't matter. It's yours to do with what you wish. And I knew that was death. Because in surrendering, or being ready to surrender, death was just there. Wasn't talking to me, he didn't have a face. Wasn't holding a scythe, like in the Monty Python movies. Hadn't come to get my liver. He was just waiting and watching to see what I would do. said to Michelle, I'm not going, it's not my time. Remember what else I said? This presence went away. Just left me. It wasn't scary or threatening or teasing or beckoning, nothing. Which is a quiet presence of something. And in that moment, I can't explain why I turned around. You know, when we undergo transformations, when we are transformed deeply, we can't explain how it happens. Because you always just know when you're just on the other side of it. Oh, that just happened. The potato farmer doesn't grow potatoes. They tend to the field. The potatoes come up. Michelle was there. In hindsight, I realized I needed Michelle there to remind me of what I couldn't see or feel anymore. I'd lost it in the pain, the physicality of it all. And that's all Michelle had to do. She didn't talk me into it. She just held up the mirror. She let me see myself again. And I went, oh yeah. And I remember saying, don't know what else I said. I remember saying, it's not my time. Just not my time. And I knew it wasn't my time. Oh, by the way, the pathology came back. All the surgical margins were clear. Got the whole thing out. And all the lymph nodes, 58 lymph nodes, all negative. I've told my surgeon more than once, and I've cried in her presence. She saved my life. None of us get through this alone. To be able to do that, I mean, I was asleep. It's amazing to be able to do that. So how did I get through it? I was reminded of why I'm alive. I was reminded of what makes Allan Allan. I was reminded of what makes life worth living. I was reminded of what has kept me going for 66 years. And not to lose touch with that. Do you recognize my daughter got her first tattoo at age 18. She's a wonderful high school teacher in Vancouver. Her first tattoo said, "This too shall pass. This too shall pass." Mindfulness, most knowingly, North America came out of the Buddhist teachings, although it's everywhere. One of the principles of Buddhist teachings is impermanence. Everything comes and goes. I was reminded of the cycles. Pain release. Night, day. No matter how dark it is, if the sun comes up tomorrow, can I be here to welcome it? Since I was able about 3 months after my surgery, 4 months, I've got a routine in the mornings now with my breath, my dog, my throat, my stomach care, my desk, what music I listen to, what books I read, what blogs I get. I do my neck exercises every morning. This is really tight. acupuncture, massage. I want to acknowledge a special friend here tonight, particularly my friend Ian. I met Ian 17 years ago. We ran together. Ian went through this 2 years before me. I love you, brother. So he said, should we do a song and dance tonight? He wears shorts even when it's -15. And somehow people show up in our lives and we remember them. And it's good to have people who walk the path before you, because they can say, come. The late Ram Dass, the meditation teacher, he said we're all just walking each other home. We're all just walking each other home. That was a lot for a simple question. How did I get through it? But that's it, there's a lot. You need all the ingredients. Yes, please.
I just had a question about applying radical acceptance to your dark night. So would you say that moment of acknowledging death's presence was kind of that moment of radical acceptance, and perhaps it would have come out that way if it wasn't that radical acceptance?
I'll try and paraphrase that. Would you say that presence, oh sorry, it's a complicated question that you've asked, to do with radical acceptance and its presence in your dark night and the presence of death, and how radical acceptance got you through?
There are two parts to the answer. It's interesting because my first part of the answer is I had 3 days of fighting, and that just made me more exhausted, emotionally and mentally. Pain, nausea. I couldn't wash, I couldn't shower, I couldn't eat, I couldn't speak. My neck was 3 times the size. It got infected. The medicines for the nausea made me constipated. The more constipated I get, the more nauseous I got. NG feeds are the worst, because I had to have them, because I couldn't eat. But they were nauseating. So after 4 days I gave up fighting, but almost gave up fighting, being alive. So I had 4 days of fighting. And in that darkest moment, that was the surrender. I've read a lot about acceptance. Mindful practice includes a lot of it. And for me, the simplest thing about acceptance is not resisting. Doesn't mean liking it. Doesn't mean pretending this isn't horrible. It doesn't mean ignoring my feelings. It doesn't mean I just need to think positive. None of that is acceptance. Acceptance is just don't resist. Because the moment I resist, I'm fighting. Can't win with myself. So I lean into it and what's called for. Total surrender. Not surrender in the fact that you lie there and do nothing. But in that turning point where you surrender to what is. And you're at least reached at a ceasefire. You might even come to a peace treaty. Oh, the other thing I haven't mentioned, of course, is all of this is wrapped up in layers of grief and fear. It's another whole conversation on its own, right? Never mind the grief and the fear. We won't even go there tonight. I'm getting old. Got cancer. I think I know, just even glancing around this room, I know of, I think, 5 or 6 people in the room who've had cancer besides me. This I can probably double that. So surrender to what is. And then we meet it with loving kindness, gentility, the word compassion. Compassion is not sympathy or pity. Go is to be with passion, comes from the Greek word for suffering, pathos, pathology. Passion is not lust. Go passion, to be with suffering. The question is how? Very gentle, very kind. And that's why peace has got to come first. And before you get to peace, you got to surrender. You got to say, I'm beaten. And there's nothing like having your whole physical control taken away from you. All of it. Seven and a half hours of anesthesia sure did a number on my brain. You know, we all had that feeling about a year into COVID, and you'd wake up in the morning and you'd say, what's going on? Michelle described it beautifully. She said, I feel like my world axis is tilted. Take that feeling, multiplied by 25. That's what a 7.5 hour anesthesia did to me. And that lasted for 3 weeks. Any other questions or comments, Paul?
Excuse me, I'm wondering if I could please make an observation from the time I was 13 years old. And then secondly, I have a question. And I wanted to mention that I was counting my tears as you were speaking, and those were tears of love. So, without being melodramatic, and I do have a tendency to be melodramatic, but my own life, my own history was replete, full of tremendous violence that I witnessed, that I saw, that I heard about happening to members of my family, people that I cared deeply about. And I also grew up at the end of the Second War, so much of what I saw were, black and white from Auschwitz. I internalized that so deeply. But when I was 13, for whatever reason, on my own, I read the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and I just let myself just go. It was all good. And after because I was terrified of death at the time I was just terrified. After reading the Tibetan Book of the Dead on my own, I discussed it with no one. I found that fear of death left. It's never been back. It's never returned, whatever's happened. So I just wanted to make that observation of this. The second thing, so I've been working as a clinical and a forensic psychologist now, I still can't believe this, for at least 50 years. At one point, I had the opportunity and the privilege to work as a hostage negotiator with some real tough people. Because we had the worst gangs, we had Satan's choice, we had all kinds of things. I found that my work as a talks as a negotiator was probably the most meaningful work I've ever done. And I just wanted to make, I guess that is the second one. And I'm wondering if you have suggestions, because I'm really interested, I'm a bit of a research wonk. I'm just wondering if you have suggestions about where one could go for books, authors, forums, around negotiating. And where does mindfulness come in? I mean, I've got all kinds of ideas and observations around, here with these tough guys with automatics and here with me, blah, blah, blah. I found that work as a negotiator the most meaningful I've ever done. And I'm just wondering if you have any suggestions about forums, authors, books to explore. It's a long question.
So Paul was asking Allan if he has any suggestions about forums or authors or books about hostage negotiation particularly, or negotiation.
Both of them really, yeah, because hostage is well-rounded in many other fields, and it's just negotiation.
Paul, you know more about negotiations than I do. Forensics scared the bejeebus out of me. I did some brief interviews with some interesting folk. I stayed with the kids. Not that they're always innocent and pure. Paul, specifically on that tough topic of negotiation, got a couple of comments. As I was imagining myself being a negotiator, and he said it twice, some of the most meaningful work you did. And what came up for me was that you saw the sanctity of life. You were literally saving lives. Because if your negotiation messed up, there may not be a good outcome for innocent people. So that commitment to life really, really speaks to me. Paul and I have known each other for 35 years. The second part of the answer, Paul, and I've seen you work clinically and we know each other socially. Everything I've said tonight, I took your word negotiation and I turned it inwards. We're negotiating our own lives internally. That's what mindfulness is. It's a negotiation of how am I going to be. I don't have books or recommendations on negotiation. It's not my playpen.
It was a very fulsome answer, thank you.
But negotiating. Because if you notice, we're always arguing. What's a negotiation? Even when you go to a restaurant, you're going to have the hamburger or the salmon. It's a negotiation. So what kind of peace and beauty and ease, transformation. You remind me of something I didn't say. When I spoke earlier on about the map, the territory, and the journey, all united, there's something else that the heart and the soul understand, sense, feel, know. It's not linear. And it's as follows. Mindfulness as a process, as a method, as a result, and as a goal are all the same. It's only the thinking mind that says, I don't understand that. Can you please put them in order? And the heart and the soul go, no, I can't. Because the moment I love, I'm open and curious and compassionate and kind and gentle. And the moment I'm curious, I get out of my own way. And the moment I see the beauty, the ugliness goes away, or is diminished. You can't separate them out. Again, thanks to Carl Jung. In this sense, not only are we transformed, but we transcend our old way of being. We become something new when we can see the doing and the being are one. Give you a simple example. When I say to myself, I'd like to be more patient, I've just opened the door to practicing patience. When I practice patience, I am patient. So patience is the practice. Patience is the method. Patience is the goal. Patience is the result. And so when we get below that thinking mind, we experience ourselves in a very non-linear way. We just allow it to happen. It all starts with that surrender. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
And anyone else? That's a tough choice. Christine, you had your hand up first. And then Michelle.
You might be thinking about after a diagnosis of this as a breast cancer, and when the pathology comes through and it's clear, it was this opportunity to step into life that was possible to appreciate. And I do feel my gratitude and living to this wholeness. And then a year goes by, and another year goes by, and this suddenly comes. It's like everything was shook up, and then it's settled. And it's almost like it comes back to this baseline with new eyes. So would you talk a little bit, like you're still emerging through all of that, but just your thoughts on, like, how do you navigate that as you, there are in navigation, negotiation,
Thank you, Christine. Let me try and summarize the question about how to navigate the path after a clear diagnosis and time goes on and life goes on, and how you find yourself where you are in that.
I'll circle back to something I said about, they told me it would take a year to recover. We went on an important trip to Toronto at the end of November. I gave a short talk for 10 minutes. We saw some friends and family. We were there for 9 days. Came back exhausted. The month of December, I cleared my calendar because I had to listen to myself. I said to myself, what's my body telling me? And so December was a forget it month. In fact, I made a couple of people in the room who I said, sorry, can I see you in January? And I think it's that deep listening, Christine. You see, it's not so much navigation. No, it is navigation, not that I know anything about sailing. But you're feeling the currents. You're listening to the wind from your heart and your soul. And if there's any I should, I said, Allan, no shoulds here. How can I cancel on my friends? Of course I can, because I was exhausted. And then you turn the corner. I think it was one of our friends in Toronto who said, you know, Allan, you've just been knocked to the floor by a 2x4. This was 4 months later. You've only just begun to scrape yourself off the floor. And I agreed with him. Now I'm someone, many of you know me. I go at 110%, because that's what puppies do. And he said to me, 80% of Allan is still more than what most people are capable of keeping up with. It's reality check. And reality wasn't what May had told me I should be doing. I should be getting better. I know how to handle surgery. I can push myself through this. Oh, forget it. And then I did turn a corner a month ago. I really turned a corner a month ago. But I had to slow down completely in December. I can't remember doing much in December, because I didn't do much except relax and listen and sleep and go hour by hour. Even to this day, I'll wake up in the morning, I might have something in the morning, and I'll say, I'll see you, I feel like at lunch, whether I'm going to do anything. And sometimes by 10 in the morning, I'm done. Can't do even what I planned. That's okay, leave it. It's that exquisite listening to their inner wisdom and their inner life. Michelle.
Michelle, we went with your granddaughter. Maybe you could tell us about her.
You've asked Allan to tell us about his lovely granddaughter and how she's helped.
I've known Michelle for 38 years. Michelle is probably the best family therapist I know. Trust you to come up with a question like that, Michelle. How many grandparents in the room? Hands up. Quite a few, actually, nearly half. A grandchild is twice your child. I've cried 3 times tonight, but they're all tears of joy. My granddaughter's daddy is here tonight. And that's what keeps us going, Michelle, is that life. She's a little crazy. I wonder which side of the family it comes from. Actually, her mother's a beautiful character too. To watch life emerge. She's now nearly 2. And every week, there's new words, there's new phrases. And when we were raising our 2 kids, we didn't have the time, because always thinking about what's coming next. The meals or the planning or the camp prep or the sleep or whatever. But now we just sit and watch and enjoy. And to watch new life develop in Michelle and I, in my son and my daughter-in-law, beautiful daughter. It's awesome. And that word all, wonder, is really part of the big mystery of life. Like we are ask ourselves the big questions. Joseph Campbell, the mythologist, said, people don't want a meaning of life. They say, what's the meaning of life? Forget it. The philosophers across the globe haven't come up with answers in 2,500 years. Joseph Campbell said, we want an experience of being alive. People want an experience of being alive. Forget the meaning. And whatever gets you out of bed in the mornings, it's the reason for being alive. At 4:30 this afternoon, my son calls us up and puts her on FaceTime, my granddaughter. He said she was asking for you. And whenever I see her do this, and she can't do that yet. I'm still teaching my son how to do it. I think my granddaughter's going to learn before him. But that moment of joy here, it's a moment of joy. It's a moment of connection. It's a moment of love. It's a moment of silliness. It's a moment of life. The other thing I did, a couple of months before my surgery, I got the complete works of Winnie the Pooh. 2 books, 20 chapters. I recorded them for her. Put them on a CD in my old voice. Somebody said, aren't you going to do more of that? I said, no. Because she's going to grow up knowing me with this voice. This is who I am. Some people said to me, are you going to cover it up with scarves and bandanas and stuff? I said, no. This is me. This is where I stand. This is what I long for, David.
It's time for us to wrap up, but before we do, Allan, have you given us the 3 salient points that you wanted to? You alluded to them.
Before you can get to the content, spoke about a lot of content tonight. Practice going inwards. Whether it's mindfulness through mindful practice, awareness, following the breath, body scans, breath work, whatever. Practice that process of settling into yourself. You can call it mindfulness, grounding, whatever. Because once you master that, then you can get to the content. Contemplation, reflection, meditation, whatever you want to call it. There's 1,000 ways of doing it. Once you go in, what's called for? Mine just happens to be BBJ now. Everyone's going to have their word or their mantra or their shining light in the darkness. You pick yours. You find yours. Your heart and your soul know what it is. You just need to listen. And thirdly, when it's really dark, go back to points 1 and 2. Last quote, and never figure out which quotes are going to come up. Howard Thurman was a friend of Martin Luther King Sr. and a mentor to Martin Luther King Jr. And Howard Thurman said the following: In the stillness of the silence, if we listen, we can hear the whispers of the heart. In the stillness of the silence, if we listen, we can hear the whispers of the heart. The one I, the another one I love. Silence isn't empty. It's full of answers. Thank you very much. Thank you, Joan. Well,